Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. It is a great day when I get to have one of my longtime friends and colleagues in the studio. She is absolutely one of San Diego's best educators and has been doing this great work for many, many, many years. And that's Dr. Angela Bass. She's the Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Leadership at the San Diego County Office of Education. Always good to see you, Angela. How are you?
Good. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How's that wonderful husband of yours, Wendell, longtime colleague of mine at San Diego Unified? How's he doing?
I think I'll keep him. He's doing great.
Yeah, I think you should keep him too. We're honored to have my associate producer join us as co-host, Brandon Joe. Brandon is a junior at UCSD, but he's also an entrepreneur. He is the founder of and CEO of Treasure Hacks. How you doing there, Brandon?
I'm doing fantastic. Always happy to talk to Angela.
Well, I would like to, before we even start with Angela, talk about how you got to know Angela.
Oh, man. So, well, to do that, I have to explain how I got on the show.
Fine.
Just quick.
Let's do it.
Cold message Neville Bemoria. He wanted to bring me on because I had a nonprofit. Got on here and had interviewed by you, Drew.
That's right.
And then I think you liked me because you asked me to co-host.
Exactly.
And so I just started yapping away. And one of the people that I happened to meet along the way was Angela. And ever since then, I asked her to just grab dinner or just something, a meal debate, because I was so interested in education and Angela. And that's just been history since. I've been talking with her on and off just for months.
Well, she's a great mentor, and that's just so typical of Angela and Wendell too. And this is what makes Angela just so special to anybody she really touches, whether it's peers, whether it's folks above her, which is not too many above her in this aspect of it, or it's students in that aspect of it. Angela, I don't think I asked you this question last time I interviewed you. When did you get interested in being an educator? Was that when you were a kid, a student? When?
I think it came about by virtue of my life experiences. The unfortunate happenstance of my mother passing at 11. I'm one of 7, and I just was the go-to girl. I took care of everyone, and I have 4 younger brothers and sisters, and it was just a natural part of who I am, and it just carried forward through high school, and then in college I taught preschool to make my way through, and it's just been a part of who I am. So
yeah, well, we're grateful that you made that career choice, to say the least, in this aspect of it. Talk about your role as Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Leadership at the county office.
Well, I'm just excited to be a member of the San Diego County Office of Education. I think it's people or students like Brandon. I believe in the brilliance of all of our children, and you can see it in everyone. I'm sure if I spent time talking to more children, we just see how talented they are. And I believe they deserve a high education, a high quality education, and they deserve to be able to enjoy school, and they teach us something. So I think my role in learning and leadership is, number one, how do we develop leaders who really come through and experience our youth in high ways, that they believe in them, they have high expectations, they understand the needs of our students and their teachers. And then the learning is, what can we bring to the districts that will provide them opportunities to create that sense of belonging? Children wanting to come to school every day, wanting to learn, and then creating a curriculum that is exciting. It's not always been exciting, and we keep working every day to make it relevant, culturally relevant, and practical, and give them skills so they go out to the world and live a great life.
Right. You've always, as long as I've known you, as is Wendell, have absolutely laser beamed on the student voice. Talk about how important that is.
I think it is the critical. We are here to teach students if we see them as bright and brilliant and we tap into where their gifts are, I think it just creates an environment that they can thrive in. And I think it's incumbent upon we, the educators, to look and listen to student voice and really create environments that are meaningful to them.
Absolutely. Brandon?
I'm just curious. I'm going to hit you with the hard one already. But because it relies on the educators, it seems like it's part mindset, part of the tactics of how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the struggle with helping students or helping teachers to bring out the voice in students?
I think it's kind of a mix between having the right amount of knowledge around content, around pedagogy, but then it has to be matched with who are the students coming into the classroom, not for that year. So every classroom, every year is different. And so how do you take your curriculum and the gifts of our students and match that up to create spaces where students can thrive?
So basically tailoring to every student based off of their needs, which I remember you were talking about a classroom setting that you set up a while ago when you were teaching, about how you had different areas in your classroom and each area was dedicated towards a different type of learner. If I remember correctly, you can go a little bit more into it because I don't think I'm doing it completely.
One of the things I did and many teachers did is ask the students what they needed their environment to be like. Sometimes you come in and it's still today in some classrooms, straight rows. But I always believe that, what would it look like? Some students need to stand. Some students don't need to sit all day. We have bean bags and spaces where students can learn. Some work great in pods of 2 or 3 students, and then we have whole groups. So really mixing it up and making sure that students are getting their physical needs met. We brought water. People are like, oh, we don't need any food in the classroom. No, students need intake, not only for nutrition reasons, but it's just a natural part of who we are. And so really thinking about the student as we create the classroom is essential. And the environment where the walls are, what's in there, reflections of who our students are.
Yeah, there's no question about that. We're chatting with Dr. Angela Bass. She's the Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Leadership at the San Diego County Office of Education. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 18th year. We're brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades. This wonderful organization has been doing great things in San Diego County, from food insecurity to literacy to arts and everything in between, joined by my associate producer, Brandon Joe, sitting in as a co-host. So, full disclosure, not only have I worked with Angela for many, many years, I'm involved with the Classroom of the Future Foundation pretty much since its inception in 1997. And CFF, but it's known, works very closely with Angela and the County Office of Education. So we're fully aware of the North Star project, our goal. Talk about North Star.
Sure. I think that under the leadership of Dr. Gothold and then the continued leadership of Dr. Gloria Cerisa, we wanted to put forth an ambitious goal. We know that of our 500,000 students in the county of San Diego, 52% of their families live in poverty, and that's family of 4, $55,000 or less. And so we've got to create this opportunity for every one of our children to achieve at high levels. And our North Star is that they have a gateway, a pathway to whether it's college or career. And so we are working every day to break down the institutional structures that create poverty in our schools. And so it is ambitious, but I think it's great. And there can be many ways where we can reduce poverty.
One of the things you hit on something that obviously is near and dear to our heart at the Classroom of the Future Foundation. That's college and career.
Yes.
It's not college or career. It's college and career. We want the students, if they choose to go to college, that's fine. But we want to make sure that they have, taken the rigorous curriculum to get accepted to college. And, happy to report, correct me if I'm wrong on this, many more students, when I was working for San Diego Unified, there was barely running water when I worked for San Diego Unified. But a lot more students now are going to college, and being accepted to college, whether they take that path or not. Brandon, got a question?
I'm just curious because I was also listening in, and a part that I kind of hinged on was, what's the first step to adjusting or altering the structure that kind of changes or puts students down this path into poverty? Or what's the first step to fix that?
You mean to alleviate them from being in poverty? One is the high quality education, the opportunities that we can provide, the innovations that we can provide in schools. Two is mindset of teachers. Like, do you believe all children can learn? Do you love all children?
And that's like not a belief that's widespread.
I think what we need to do is continue to have those conversations. I believe that teachers want to do the very best that they can. I think it is incumbent upon us to, like we have created a program, it's called Aspire, working with middle schools, and it's about how do we have children feel like they belong in schools. Attendance after the pandemic was really bad. We had chronic absences. We needed to create environments for students to want to come. Why should they come? Number two, when they get there, how do we create experiences where they are successful? And then that creates this other building block to, number one, getting better grades, connecting with other students. And what we've seen in, one of the districts is Poway, we're seeing incredible results where teachers are shifting their mindset. Yeah, you've got to build relationship with those students. You have to know who they are and where they're coming from. They had been kind of closed up for years through the pandemic. Now we've got to develop those relationships again. And we're seeing remarkable results when students are taking a pre and a post of how well do you feel like you belong. It's really incredible, and I'd like to be able to share that in the coming months. It's great.
Yeah, and also, as you well know, Angela, my wonderful daughter is a fourth grade teacher in the Poway Unified School District at Chaparral Elementary School, and if I can brag about her a little bit, and you know this, she gets high marks from her administrators, and equally important from the parents, and certainly the students who come first in all that business, and her colleagues. And she does exactly what you just described. She gets to know every single one of these students, what they're interested in, and so forth. Before we go to break, maybe you can touch a base on something that's also very of interest to me in the Classroom of the Future Foundation, and that is the portrait of a graduate.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about it. We have been working with an organization, and we've branched off into our own, is really looking at schools as systems. How do we create a system within a school that touches students, parents, community, adults in the system, and really began to design schools of the future? We're doing a lot of things that were being done when I was a student that we don't need to do anymore. So we're having schools contact us, or districts, and want to begin to create a new way of being. And that is earth-shattering. We have Mountain Empire, we have Grossmont Unified, we have Vista, and they're really bringing every stakeholder into the conversation and saying, what will students need in 18 years when they finish with school? And then what do we need to build from preschool all the way up through senior, of getting them ready? And how do we involve everyone in the conversation? And it is pretty remarkable. I mean, it sounds like it'd be easy, but really we're going to have a vision for a portrait for a student, portrait of a graduate. What's the portrait look like for adults? What does the portrait look like for community? And I'm actually leaving here to go to Grossmont West Hills High this morning to go and listen to student groups and them tell us what does that portrait for them look like, and how can we begin to help and support the development of our students.
Yeah, we come back from break. We're going to continue that conversation of a portrait of a graduate, and talk about multilingual learners and how critical it is to hit that population. And then, Angela, we always leave some time at the second half of the interview. What can our listeners do to support the great work that you're doing at the county office and your colleagues? When we return with Dr. Angela Bass, Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Leadership for the San Diego County Office of Education. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by the fine folks at Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great work for people living in San Diego County. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are chatting with Dr. Angela Bass, Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Leadership at the San Diego County Office of Education. Our Spotlight Show is brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, joined by Associate Producer of the Spotlight Show, Brandon Joe. He is a junior at UCSD and an entrepreneur of Treasure Hacks. You got a question for Angela?
So I do kind of want to, if you don't mind, dig a little bit further into the portrait of a graduate.
Sure, please.
Because it's, as Drew would say, it takes a village to bring up a student, especially one that's been in a place that's, well, I guess just straight up in poverty. Mm-hmm. And so when you're developing these portraits, you're talking to the actual people themselves, like the graduates, the parents, and do you have them ideate with like groups of themselves?
Yes, we meet monthly. Well, we kind of meet monthly as a whole group, but we break the groups up and let them identify what they see as a pathway to the future. And the pathway to the future for me, when I came up, is very different than the skills that our young people will need tomorrow. So we're co-creating our environment. We're co-creating with students, but we're also giving them a chance to share their feedback and create that portrait of a graduate. And the co-creation is the essential piece, because in the past, we came on high with what we thought was good for kids and what we used to do. And I think now we've got to move in a different pathway and create a new vision for education.
Yeah. And as Drew would say, it's just, God forbid we actually ask the students what they would actually want, or the parents themselves. But I'm just so curious, like, what have the students been saying?
Absolutely. We also are working with, I'll give 2 examples, and it's very different from community to community. And we worked with Coronado. And I remember being at a community meeting, and one of our community partners or community members said, "Oh, we've got to get every child ready for college." And a young man, 17-ish, said, "Well, sir, I have to, respectfully disagree, because everyone's not going to college, and I may want to try several things on before I determine my pathway." So we're in a room where we can have these conversations. And the gentleman, he was in his 80s, I think, and he goes, "Well, I really appreciate your perspective. I will go to Grossmont," and we have students saying things like, they say, "Well, what's one thing we could change?" And I hate to say this, but students were saying, "Can we stop having teachers yell at us?" So we have different. The other piece that's really unusual and unique about each community is some of our kids are just getting there every day. Whereas I think in Coronado, they have a little more stability. But in other communities, we're not even thinking about what it took for them to get to school every day. And so we really need to listen and then shape our vision around what they need.
One of the things I want to bring up before we will get to multilingual learners. I apologize. I promise you we'll do that, Dr. Bass. But working with one of my colleagues, really well, Rob Atterbury. Mm-hmm. Rob Atterbury ran at the time, right? Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to date myself now, and your wonderful husband sitting right next to you. He's going to laugh. School to work transition. Of course, we've just tells you how old I am, for God's sake. But I think one of the things when we work with, Robbie is at Connect Ed now, that works with, college and preparation and get to careers, is what are some of those skill sets My background is in journalism, and communication. And as one of the portraits for a graduate is focus on communication skills. Talk about how important that is.
Oh, it's vital. Number one, they have access, our young people have access beyond my imagination today. And so whether we either shape it or they're going to retrieve it from outside sources. And so it is so important, number one, that they have speaking skills, literacy skills. They have to have the fundamentals in education, and we need to start early, not just elementary school, but we need to do it in preschool. So we have a wonderful early ed program where we're really pushing and supporting parents to support their students in their learning from the beginning, and then developing those literacy skills. We're not going to make it. We think, oh, we have social media. You still have to be literate in reading and writing. You have to be literate in math, numeracy. So those skills are still fundamental, but it's how we teach it and why. And giving our students the why is critical.
Absolutely. Okay, we're chatting with Dr. Angela Bass, Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Leadership at the San Diego County Office of Education. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Now we can talk about multilingual learners.
Well, one of the things that the state has done is now we have gone from just focusing from a deficit of English learners and longtime English learners to really creating a space where these are all going to be under the umbrella of multilingual learners. And I think that does level the playing field so that our students have an opportunity to acquire, whether it's English or a second language. It's allowing us to really pay a big focus. 36% of the students in San Diego County are English learners or multilingual learners. How are we doing with that? Not as well as we want to. So we're putting a large emphasis on many, many strategies that support them learning English and moving them from coming into school being an English learner, but exiting them from the program where they can be proficient in their native language, but also proficient in English.
Right. So, we've talked about this before, and I think it's real critical that, we talked about a little bit what you're doing in gross bond, all that business, Invest and all that. A lot of it has to deal with, community schools and getting everyone together, and just not the education environment, everyone that's in that area, the businesses and social services and that aspect of it. But what can the public do to support, their neighborhood school, which is important, whether they have somebody that's going to that school or not? Don't ignore the fact that just because you don't have a kid or a grandkid there. And, and what else can businesses do to really step it up and support the great learning that's going on in the classroom?
I think we all need to be curious because this is our future. These are the young people who are coming up, and most people come back and work in their community if we can afford to live in San Diego.
Right.
But I think that they need to be curious. They need to show up. Last Thursday, I was in San Diego Unified School District, and we were introducing the state curriculum for ethnic studies. Well, there are several people in the group that I was with who don't have children in schools anymore, but they're really curious about how do we integrate ethnic studies, per se, in our curriculum. And it's rich. They're curious. They want to be involved. They have opinions, and I think opinions are very important. So I just think show up at the door, understand and look for the brilliance of our children, and then ask questions because this is your community. Whether you're a business owner or a nonprofit, these are the people who are going to be entering into the world of work, the world of college, and we need to know about them.
Well, and I think into that point, it's so true. And we say this quite a bit on the nonprofits that we have on the show, and certainly they know this better than anybody. There's no such thing as too little money to support the schools. If you only have $5, that's fine, right?
Yep.
Or volunteer. I can only do 1 hour a month. No problem. We'll find it because maybe next month it's 2 hours and all that business. And when you find out that, listen, the schools, which sometimes can be a little insular, to say the least, that. I think one of your goals, obviously, certainly as, first of all, because it's your personality, but learning and leadership is making sure everybody feels inclusive in this area, is that we need as much support from the community to go into those schools, do we not?
Absolutely. It's vital. If we don't get involved, then we get what we get. So I think nonprofits, small businesses. Everyone needs to come together and be involved. And I think community partners are essential. Most of the community partners kind of don't know how to help.
Right.
But come on in. Come show up. We will ask you lots of questions. Again, it must be co-created. What do you see you need in your businesses that we need to include in the instruction or the curriculum so that our students are more prepared?
Right, and that sort of brings me to something that you well known, as does your husband, that always lays to be on college and career with Classroom of the Future. And the example I use all the time, and it certainly applies to education. When I worked for the newspaper at the Union Tribune, at the time, there was about 2,100, maybe 2,200 employees. Only 1/7 of them wrote for the paper. The other 6/7 were doing other things, whether you were selling the paper, whether you were marketing the paper, whether you were doing the finance of the paper, doing graphics artists are doing what I was doing in newspaper and education, of course, and outreach. The same thing in education. There are so many different types of jobs, that, listen, I'm not so sure I can be in front of, 175 kids, 182 days of the year, but I can do something else, correct?
Correct. I just think the opportunities, if we have to think of it in abundance, we can't just do one thing. There are many things, as you said, Drew,
Right.
that you can bring from mentorship to any of your technical skills to just bringing people together. And I think in this day and age, with the amount of poverty, the amount of children who need these experiences to be able to survive, to be able to thrive in our communities, if we don't give it to them, where are they going to get it?
Absolutely. Any final comments, Angela?
Well, I just say, I think everyone needs to be involved in education. I think we're all really working hard and trying hard. And I will say, without trying to be favorites, but when we see students like Brandon,
Right.
I'm intrigued by what he's doing as a 21-year-old innovator who's trying to bring curb cut strategies and explore how do we touch base with our young people. And we need more people like that to be involved. And I think, again, I don't know if it's my favorite word other than children are brilliant, but I think we've got to be curious. We can't just sit on the sidelines and complain.
There's no question about it. Well, Angela, you're a treasure. I'm a little prejudiced, but you are a treasure too. Certainly, your colleagues at the County Office of Education and to those students, those 500,000 students that are in San Diego County. I'm going to ask you to make another return appearance, and we only just touch base on just the iceberg theory, maybe 5% of what you do, and there's other 95%. Sure. We'll do that as well. And please give a high five to that wonderful husband of yours, Wendell Bass, an educational leader in his own, and we'll look forward to having you make a return appearance.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Drew. It's really important that we keep education at the center of what we do every day.
So we're going to do that at Cloudcast Media for many, many years to come. Talking to Dr. Angela Bass, Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Leadership for the San Diego County Office of Education. I'm Drew Schlosberg. And you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, doing great things for people living in San Diego County. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.